Hello, welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. In this video, we are going to see 6 important theories of international trade. So, we have to start with mercantilism because this is the one from where trade theories has started. These theories were developed in the 16th century. This is so, as I have already told you, this is one of the earliest efforts to develop theories related to international trade. As per this theory, a country's wealth is something which plays a very important role, and this is something which is determined by the amount of gold and silver holdings of a country. If a country has more silver or gold holdings compared to some other country, then the country which possesses more gold or more silver would be considered as rich compared to the country which possesses less gold or less silver. So, as per the mercantilist, a country should increase its holdings of gold as well as silver by promoting exports and by discouraging imports. We know that if we are promoting export, we will be gaining because we are sending or we are giving our domestically produced goods to other countries or foreigners, so that we will be getting foreign exchange or foreign currencies. But if we import commodities which are produced in some other countries, what will happen is that we have to pay for that commodity. So there would be a flow of money from our country to some other country. That is why mercantilists believe that if we have to be rich, we have to increase our export and we have to reduce our imports. That's it. So, in people in other countries buy more from you, that means that they will sell to you, and then they will have to pay to you. So, if you are selling your goods to some others, you will be getting more gold and more silver. But if you're buying or if you're purchasing goods produced by some other countries, you are giving more gold or more silver to the producer country of that particular good. The objective of each country here is to have a trade surplus. That means that they have to increase their exports comparatively more than their imports. So then only they will be able to reduce their trade deficit. Then came protectionism, a new branch or a new idea or a new set of thoughts which gave a closer look at the world history from 50s to late 80s. Late 18th, sorry, that means that during 1500s to late 1800s. Okay, so this would explain why there was a popularity of the mercantilist school of thought. During 1500s, we could see that the rise of a new concept like new nation states were there, and by increasing exports and trade, these rulers were able, the rulers of these nation states were able to amass more gold as well as more silver. As I have already told you, if you have more gold and more silver with you, that means that you will become rich. And if you are losing your gold and silver, then you will be poor. One way that many of these nations or newly formed nation states promoted exports was to impose restrictions on imports. So they were, we know what tariffs, what quotas, what all these kinds of things are doing. So all these kinds of restrictions, right? These are new forms of restrictions, but earlier times this protectionism, when it was evolved, what the nation states have done is that they have imposed some kind of ban on imports. So this is known as, or this strategy is known as protectionism, and this is what we continue still today. Only difference is that the methods that we use today are different from the ones we have used in earlier times. Nations expanded their wealth by using their colonies around the world. We know how Britishers came to India, how they exploited Indian, how they amassed wealth from India, how they plundered, how they what looted us. All these things we know. So that is one of the important means through which the British Empire became a rich economy. I am not telling that it is no, it is just with India that Britishers became rich. If the Britishers had colonies in different parts of the world, and they were amassing wealth from these parts of the world, and this came to be a very important point that contributed to their present richness. So if you look into the case of France, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, these countries have also become successful in building a large colonial empires that generated extensive wealth from their colonies. So these countries, they have also amassed wealth. They have become successful by amassing their wealth, and they could build their own empire. Although mercantilism is considered to be one of the oldest theories, it remains a part of modern thinking as well, because we could see its implications today itself. If you look into the case of countries such as Japan, China, Singapore, Taiwan, etc., these countries still favor exports, and these still discourage imports. We know how China is prospering by exporting its products, low cost products, to other countries. China is actually dumping, right? But its tendency of dumping has been reduced as a result of protectionism, or protectionist policies taken by different countries, like India. Nearly every country at one point or another has implemented some form of protectionist policy. This is not only with respect to India, irrespective of whether a country is developed or developing, countries would be they would be implementing policies, protectionist policies, to secure their their nation. While export-oriented companies usually support protectionist policies that favor their industries, other companies as well as consumers are hurt by protectionism. Taxpayers for the government subsidies of select export in the form of higher taxes. We know that, and free trade advocates highlight that how free trade benefits all members of the global community. With that, we move on to a very famous theory, which is considered to be the starting point of the modern theory on international trade, the theory proposed by Adam Smith, which is known as the theory of comparative advantage. He has proposed this theory in 1776 in his famous work, Wealth of Nations. So, in 1776 this book got published. So, in this published book, he has offered his new theory of trade, which reasoned that trade between countries shouldn't be regulated or restricted by the government, or there shouldn't be any policy or restriction which restricts a country from engaging in trade. As per him, trade should follow naturally according to market forces, and as per market forces, this should be happening, and there shouldn't be any intervention by the government to restrict trade. So as per him, he has given actually an example. He has taken the example of two countries, the country A and country B. Country A produce a good cheaper or a faster at a cheaper rate or a faster rate than country B. Then country A have the advantage over country B in producing that particular good. So country A should specialize in producing that good. Similarly, if country B was producing some other good, then it should focus on the specialization of that good, because it has some capacity to produce that good at a cheaper rate or a faster rate. So specialization is something which is very much stressed by Adam Smith. By specializations, countries would be able to gain and improve their efficiencies, and also they will become more skilled. Production would also become efficient, and Smith's theory reasoned with increased efficiencies, people in both the countries would benefit and trade would be encouraged. This theory stated that nations' wealth should not be judged by how much gold or silver it possesses. That's the crux of Adam Smith's theory of comparative advantage. Then we are moving on to the next theory, Adam Smith's theory of absolute cost advantage. Now we are going to the very famous theory offered by Ricardo, that is comparative cost advantage. So, okay. So as per Ricardo, there would be two countries again. If country A had the absolute advantage in the production of both the products, we know that two countries would be engaging in trade. If one country would be exporting one product to the other country, and a country, second country would be exporting some other product to the first country. That means that if you are taking two countries, country A and country B, then two goods are there, good X and good Y. If country A produces good X, if it is specialized in the production of good X, then it will be exporting good X to country B. And if country B is producing good Y, and if it is specializing in the production of good Y, then country B would be exporting good Y to country A. So that's it. Ricardo has reasoned that if country A had the absolute advantage in the production of both the product, in both X and Y, country A has absolute advantage, then specialization and trade would occur between two countries. Then also there will be scope for trade. Comparative advantage occur when a country cannot produce a particular product more efficiently than the other country. Okay, and the difference between these two theories, comparative theory and absolute advantage theory, these are subtle. Comparative advantage focus on relative productivity differences, whereas absolute advantage looks at absolute productivity. So if just to give you an example, I'm not explaining, but I'm reading this example. Okay, Miranda is a Wall Street lawyer who charges $500 per hour for her legal services. It turns out that Miranda can also type faster than administrative assistants in her office, who are paid $40 per hour. Even though Miranda clearly has absolute advantage in both the skills, should she do both the jobs? As per Adam Smith, as per Ricardo, she shouldn't do both the jobs. For every hour Miranda decides to type instead she does legal work, she would be giving up $460 in income. Her productivity as well as income will be highest if she specializes in a highly paid job, right? And hire a more qualified administrative assistant who can type fast, although a little slower than Miranda. By having both Miranda as well as her assistant can concentrate on both their respective tasks. By having both Miranda and her assistant concentrate on their respective tasks, their overall productivity as a team is higher. So that's it. That's all comparative advantage is all about. A person or a country will specialize in doing what they are relatively better to. So there will be barriers to trade. Definitely there would be transportation barriers, storage based barriers, distribution barriers, etc. But here we are not taking into consideration the barriers kind of thing, because whether it is Adam Smith theory or whether it is Ricardian theory, these two are very simplistic theories when it comes to the arena of international trade. With that, we are moving on to a much more complicated theory, which is known as the Ohlin theory, which is also known as the factor proportion theory. So, both Ricardian theory as well as Adam Smith theory, they assume that free and open market would be to countries and producers to determine which goods they should produce and how efficiently. Okay, and in 1900s, the two Swedish economists, Heschker as well as Ohlin, they focused their attention to how a country should gain a comparative advantage by producing products which utilizes factors that are in abundance in a country. So we have seen two countries, country A and country B. There are two goods, X and Y, and just see there are two factors as well, capital and labor. So with these 2 into 2 into 2, we are building this model. As a result, this model is also named so. Factors that were in greater supply related to demand would be cheaper. Factors in great demand related to supply will be more expensive. So that's it. As in contrast, countries would import goods that require resources that were short in supply but high in demand. Okay, if I give you an example, just take the case of China and India. China and India are these are actually both these countries are having labor, and these countries would become the optimal locations for labor intensive industries like textiles and garments. Okay, so to be given, I'm just giving some more specific example. So just take the example of India and US, where India is labor intensive and US is capital intensive. Okay, and India is producing good X, which is capital intensive, and India is exporting that good to US, whereas in the case of US is producing some good which is capital intensive. Just say Y, and US is exporting good Y to India. So in that sense, both these countries would be engaging in trade. Coming to next aspect, that is the Leontief paradox. In the early 1950s, Vasily Leontief, he has studied the US economy. He could see that that was a capital abundant economy. So they could export more capital intensive good. But however, his research could see that US states was importing more capital intensive goods. Even though that was a capital intensive nation, the goods exported, the goods imported by USA are more capital expensive or in the capital intensive. Okay. According to this factor proportion theory, the US should have been importing labor intensive goods instead of capital intensive goods, right? As per the analysis of Leontief, which is known as the Leontief paradox, because there exists a paradox between what the theory says and what Leontief could see in reality. So he could see that in subsequent years, economists have noted that historically at that point in time, labor in US was both available in steady supply and more productive than in many countries. Hence, it made sense to export labor intensive goods. So, over the decades, many economists have used theories and data to explain and minimize the impact of the paradox. That means that as per theory, USA, since it is a capital intensive or capital abundant nation, it should produce capital intensive goods and it should export capital intensive goods, and it should import labor intensive goods. But in reality, Leontief could find the opposite. It was exporting labor intensive goods and it was importing capital intensive goods. So that was just a exceptional period of time that he has studied the US. So after that duration was over, US became an exporter of labor intensive goods and exporter of capital intensive goods and importer of labor intensive goods. Okay, so trade cannot be explained neatly by one single theory. More importantly, our understanding of international trade theories continues to evolve. Still, we have to understand more and more about it. So that's all for today. You can like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more videos, and you can be a part of my Telegram channel and Telegram group to discuss your doubts. I'll be providing the links of the same in the description box. That's all for today. Thank you.